Hey guys, in this video we will be going over a few things because we are about to wrap up the functions we are adding to the game, so we can start on working on a game mode and after that networking. The first thing we're going to do in this video is to make our enemy players a little bit more intelligent looking. For instance, if you look at it right now, it will just, when it spots us, it will shoot at us, but if we go behind a wall, it will keep on shooting, keep on aiming at us and stuff, and keep on shooting. It's not very challenging at all. So we're going to change it a little bit so that the enemy, when it detects us, it's going to raise its weapon to aim, just like we do, and maybe crouch. Maybe crouch, we're gonna let it a percentage calculated, and also stop shooting when he doesn't see us anymore, and continue with his path when he hasn't seen us for an amount of time. Yeah, so let's get started with that. Let's first let's see how we did it again. So if we look at the enemy player, let's open it up. Yeah, so what we probably want to do, we want to raise our, like I said, we want to raise our weapon. Let's see, in our scanner, we are scanning for our targets. Right here we are selecting our target. So if we have a target, let's change the state of our enemy player to aware. Enemy state current mode equals to enemy state mode aware, because we have two states, unaware and aware, and by default it's unaware. So when we select the target, we're going to switch to aware. Now if we go to the animation, we could here we could set the animator, set bool, animator, this was is aiming, I believe, aiming, to raise the weapon, and this will be our enemy player, enemy state. We're gonna check the current mode if this equals to enemy state emode aware, just like we do for the walking part. So now when we find a target, we switch to an aiming mode. Now let's see how that looks. If we go to the enemy player, maybe somewhere here, and then let's something like this. Now take a look at the weapon of the enemy. There we go. So now it raises his weapon, and now we want it to stop shooting. Yeah, so we need to check if the line of sight is still there for our enemy target, which will probably be somewhere in the enemy shoot. Maybe at the end of the burst. So if we, yeah, that would be nice. We are starting a burst, and in the end of the burst we can check if the player is visible. So if the player is still visible when it goes behind a wall, it will continue shooting until the end of the burst. So we could make a new method here to void, must be like not a void, I think. Bool can see target. Yeah. So if we can see the target, we're gonna use the if not transform is in line of sight. I believe I have added a reference here. Don't forget to add the shared extension using here. So if we don't have anything inside at the active weapon transforms position, no, active weapon aim target position. Let's say a field of view of 90. Doesn't really matter. Just make it large enough, and then we're going to use the same mask as our scanner. So we need our enemy player scanner. Now if you don't have access to the player scanner, make sure it's public in the enemy player class, so make it public. And then enemy player scanner mask, and the factor 3 up. So we are checking if we have if we don't have anything inside, we can say we need to clear the target, and also return false, and otherwise we're going to return true. So we need to clear the target for the enemy player, so let's create a method for that right away. Enemy player create clear target and scan. So we want to clear our target and continue scanning. So Shift Alt F12 creates a new method in the enemy player, and now we want to clear the target, and then, well, maybe even better, we want to first lower a weapon in a certain amount of time, and then after a certain amount of time we want to check if we want to continue. So first we say a priority target equals to null, and then we say our let's make a method here, void check ease weapon. So we want to check here, check if we can ease our weapon or stop aiming. And another method for avoid check continue patrol. So then we want to say check if we can continue our patrol. Okay. Now in our clear target and scan, we're going to make use of the game manager instance timer to add the check ease weapon in maybe first 3 seconds or something, and game manager instance timer add check continue, and let's make that 15 I'm sorry, 15 seconds. Now you can also make, if you want, a little bit more dynamic by making a range, random range, why don't I have a range here? Oh, Unity Engine range. We have the random range, so you can say between 3 and 5 seconds or 6 seconds, whatever, to make it a little bit more dynamic here. Something like this. There we go. Oops. Now I have insert on. How do I turn it off again? There we go. Okay, so between 3 and 6 seconds, and we're going to continue our patrol between maybe 12 and 16 seconds. Yeah. Let's rename this one. Okay. So now we want to continue our scanning too. So this will be scanner on ready. On scan ready. So this will continue our scan. Now when we check to continue our patrol, we're just going to check if our priority target equals to null or not equals to null. So if we don't have a target assigned, if we have a target assigned, we're going to return because we don't want to continue patrolling. And otherwise we're going to say Pathfinder agent resume. Because we can simply use resume because we have stopped the agent in the Pathfinder when we detected our target. So we can simply say resume and it will go on to the next target. I'm sorry, the next waypoint target. And now for the each weapon, we're gonna say the same here. Check if we don't have a target, and then we're gonna say this enemy state current mode equals to our unaware mode. So unaware toggles the aware here. Okay, so let's see where this brings us now. So I'm gonna walk in his view. It will shoot at us. It still shoots at us. Did we forget to say can't? Yeah, we didn't. We made a function, but we didn't check for it. So maybe in the end of the burst, we're gonna say if can see target. Yeah. So only if we can see the target, we are adding a new burst. So let's see. Now we hide. Now it stops shooting. Now it's between. Now it lowers his weapon, if you saw that. Then we wait a little bit more. And there it goes. No, so now it continues again. So let's get again in his view. There he goes. Now it stops. We get back in view. It stops again. We wait for him to lower his weapon, get inside. There he fires again. Now we wait, and there he goes. Because it's still aware, it will keep running, and then when it goes to unaware, it will go back to walking. So this gives us a little nicer effect for our enemy player, so that it behaves a little bit different. Now, what we also want to do is we want to make sure that our player sometimes crouches. The enemy sometimes crouches. So what we're going to do, we're going to make a new method here. Let's say avoid crouch state or something. And then we're going to say here, bool take cover. So we want to make a randomness again. So let's say random range, and we're going to say between 0 and 3 or something. If this equals to null, so this will give us like 4 options, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And if this equals to 0, we're going to say, yeah, we want to take cover. So it's like a 25% chance that we are taking cover here. So if you want to lower that percentage, you could go like 0 and 1, and then it's 50% chance that you will take cover. But I think this will be fair as well. Now, if we want to take cover, maybe if not take cover, we're going to return. We're going to skip out the method. And otherwise, we're going to check the distance of our enemy player to its target, so we don't want to crouch if we are right in front of each other. Yeah? So then we're going to say float distance to target equals to factor 3 distance transforms position to the active weapon transform aim target position, so where we are aiming with our weapon. So if this distance to target, if this is greater than maybe 15 meters or something, we're gonna say there we go, enemy player, enemy animation. No, we don't have the animation here. Let's see. It's here, so let's do it dirty. Get component. Enemy animation, and then we're going to say is crouched equals to true, and then we're going to is crouched like a method here in a property. Sorry, I'm going to make a property in the enemy animation. Jump to it. So then we have the is crouched. Now let's change this a little bit by making a private variable. bool m is crouched, and then when we are getting, we are returning, whoops, m is crouched, and if we are setting, we're gonna say m is crouched equals to true. Now I'm doing this because when we are setting the crouch, I want to be able to come back out of crouch after a certain amount of time if we don't are engaged, if we don't are aware of the enemy at that time. So let's see. Let's first make the crouch method here. So in the animator, set animator set bool. I believe it was is crouch, but I'm gonna check this to make sure. Yeah, is crouched. So we're gonna say is crouched, and this will be based on our is crouched. Yeah, right here, because we are setting it. So if we are not crouched, we are simply standing. Seems obvious, I guess. And then let's make a new method here. Let's call this void is it safe to stand up? Maybe check is safe to stand up. And then we're gonna say bool is unaware. So if we are unaware, equals to the enemy player state current mode. If this equals to aware, sorry, to unaware, then we're going to say if is unaware is crouched equals to false. Now when we are setting the value, we want to say game manager instance timer, and we're going to add the check is safe to stand up method in like 25 seconds or something. So when we are crouching, we're going to make a check to stand up in at least 25 seconds. Oh, I'm sorry, in a maximum time of 25 seconds. So it will be crouched for 25 seconds. Again, you can make a random value here. Now we also want to set this crouch variable here in the enemy shoot. So when we are shooting, let's see what will be a nice place to put this. Maybe in fire. When we are starting the burst, we could check. Yeah. What we are going to do when we are starting the burst, we're gonna execute the crouch state method here. Let's see, crouch state. For instance, you could increase the percentage. I'm sorry, the possibility to take crouch when we are reloading or when we are almost out of ammo or whatever. Then you can increase this value if you want. I'm going to keep it like this. So when we are starting the burst, we're going to check it. When we are ending the burst, we might check it. And let's see, when we are reloading, we can check it. So these are all possibilities that we are going into a crouch. Yeah, so maybe this is a little bit too much, but yeah, I think this will be so maybe here, if we are alive when we are starting the burst, because when we are ending the burst and we can still see the player, it will go back to start burst. So we want to check if we can still see the player here. So if we cannot see the target, we want to return out of here as well. So I don't think we are forgetting anything. Let's see what happens. Switch over to the scene view, getting into view. There it goes crouching. Now it cannot see us anymore. We're gonna move here. So it will walk crouched. Now it sees us again. Now I noticed it at 25 seconds. It wasn't seeing us now. There we go. Okay, I think this works pretty much the way I want it to work. So if we are having more enemies, they will like play a little bit better against you. They're not smart at all, but they seem to do. I think they will be fair enough for you to work on. Okay, so now let's make a few small adjustments. One thing is that I can see the crosshair when I'm not aiming, so I want to change that. So let's get to the crosshair. So I only want to see the reticule when I'm actually aiming. So I probably want to do it here. Void Z visibility bool value, and then we're gonna say the reticule transform game object enabled, set enabled, what was it? Set active. And this will be set active based on our reticule game object. Transform enabled, no. Oh, it's active or something like that. Transform is, I'm sorry, active self. So let's see, I think this will work. We're gonna set it active. Maybe let's set visibility, but let's call this toggle. No. Just let's do it like this. Yeah, so we want to know here if we are aiming, and then if we are aiming, we want to so if input, sorry, do we have an input here? No. Game manager instance input controller fire 2, I believe. Or is aiming? No. Fire 2. Come on, man. And otherwise, we're gonna simply say it's always false. Will this work? I think it will. There we go. Now the crosshair is not scaling when we are walking, but I think this is okay. Okay, so that works. Now, I believe also when we are looking at the enemy player, we have the, because I can hear reloading from other guns. This is probably from a weapon reloader. So, or maybe our assault rifle. Yeah, kijk, our assault rifle has the check if we are reloading. If we are reloading right here, so if it's attached to an other weapon from the enemy or something, and we are reloading as our player, it will reload all the assault rifles. So this is bad. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna remove this here, and then we should go to the player, I guess. We have a place where we have the player shoot here, so probably player shoot. There we go. Because we are firing here too, so we're gonna say active weapon reload. There we go. Now this fixed it. Let's see if it still fires at us and reloads. There we go. Cool. Okay, so next up is our screen where we start our game and where we can select our first level. But before we do that, I want to show you a small trick or maybe technique about Unity terrain. So, but before you do it, let's make sure we save what we have, and that we have an up-to-date prefab for our player. So we have a player, we have our scene stuff main camera. We want to make sure this is this one, main camera. So we have our main camera prefab, and we have our canvas prefab. And let's see for enemy player 2. Whoops. Let's make a new one. Enemy player, and this should be okay. Fair enough, I think. Well, maybe it's wise to make one for a cover wall to work from later on. Okay, so with that done, let's create a new scene here. Save the current scene, and let's add a new terrain. Because the problem is often when you have a terrain and you are drawing the hills and stuff, or maybe you are using external tools or whatever, but if you are drawing terrains and you want to add in some models to it, it can be like a little bit difficult to place or get the scale right. So what I usually do, let's make a texture here so we can see it a little bit better. There we go. So now we have everything green. Now the terrain size currently is 500 by 500 with a height map resolution of 513, which is always a power of 2 plus 1. So we have 265 plus 1, 512 plus 1, 1024 plus 1, and etc. 513 is fair enough. We're going to keep this as 500 too. Now let's make a few hills just to make well, maybe first raise it like 20, so we can make like water. Because what I want to show you, if I'm let's make this a little bit bigger. For instance, if I want to make like a river here, so I'm lowering this part. There we go. Maybe a little bit more strength. Whoops. Hold shift to make it go down. So this is not a movie about a video about the how do I texture and stuff, but more how can I add models to my current terrain. So I'm gonna make a little bit hills here or something. Doesn't really matter. Maybe smooth it out. There we go. Okay, so for instance, you have this now, yeah, and you have added, you are adding water here, but you want to make a bridge between these. Now, what you can do, you can create your model in your modeling software and then place the bridge. But what I tend to do is I'm going to export the raw height map of this terrain by pressing export raw, bit 16 and byte order windows. I'm exporting it. I'm going to export it to my desktop. There we go. Can replace this one. And now when I go to Photoshop, I'm going to import the raw. So it says 513 automatically, the height map. We're going to say the channels should be 1, I think. Could be that this is Dutch, by the way. So if it's channels and then number or amount, so it could be that it's 1 by default or 2 by you on your end, but make sure it's 1, 16-bit and also IBM PC. Then hit OK. So now we can see the height map. And the only thing is that it rotated around. So if I look at it like this, you can see it going a little bit to the right. Now it's going from here to here, so it's flipped, yeah. Flipped horizontally, I think. Yeah. So black is the lowest, white is the highest part. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna save this to your desktop as whatever, maybe JPEG. Okay, so we have a JPEG out of this thing, and then open up your Blender, then remove the block, and then add plane. There we go. By default, default sizes should be 2 by 2, which is let's see if we go to the metric system, 2 meters by 2 meters. Yeah. Unity has a default scale of 1 unit is 1 meter, but so this is handy to know. But if we go to the modifier of this plane, and we're going to add a displacement modifier like this, and then we're going to make a texture for it. So hit new on the texture, and then we need to load this image. Let's see, it was there we go. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. So let's do it again. You hit new. Sorry, it should be on texture, and then make sure you show the properties by this little icon you had here before. This one. And then we're gonna say image open, and then go to your desktop where you have the terrain image. Then you're gonna open it. Now with that set, we have like tied the image to the plane. Now go into object mode by hitting tab, then hit W to subdivide, and then make the number of cuts like a little bit higher, like 200 or maybe 250 or whatever. So you can see it makes like 250 cuts. Otherwise you cannot make the terrain. Now with that done, if you tap back out, you can see the terrain is already there. It's a low less resolution. The more cuts you make, the more the higher resolution you get. So maybe if we tap this back out, maybe again, and we make more cuts, like 400. Whoops, and we're gonna assign the image again. I don't know if it improved or not, but you can see we have the same terrain as we had in Unity. Now, again, this is flipped, but that doesn't really matter at all. The only thing is that it's still very small. It's only 2 meters by 2 meters. And we had it like 500 by 500. So if we scale this by 250, so you hit S 250, then you can see the dimensions on the right setting 250 as well, or 500 by 500 as well. Then press enter. Now we have the entire terrain at the exact size if we have it in Unity. It's still, it's shifted down from the origin. To change that, make sure you, let's see, I thought we could change this. I think we had to do this before. Let me just look here in the options if we have anything here. Colors, image. No. No. Okay, let's let me do this again. Yeah, I want to make sure that I'm doing this right. Okay, let's add a new mesh plane by hitting Shift A. It's 2 meters by 2 meters. Go to the modifier tab, add a modifier, displacement modifier, add texture to it, and then there we go. It's the mid-level one. So if we hit tab W to subdivide, let's make 300 cuts. Go out of tab. We don't see anything yet. Maybe different texture. There we go. So now we have it. Now the mid-level, you can raise this one by dragging this up. Yeah. Okay, and sometimes it could be that you are not seeing the entire height map. Just play around with the texture coordinates, change them from local to UV or whatever, and maybe it will work for you. If you want, you can adjust the strength through here, but we are not going to do it. We're going to keep it like this. Okay, so now with this done, we're going to hit S for scale, and again 250, so it's 500 by 500. There we go, and now we are in center with the terrain. Now, am I recording? Yeah, luckily. So now if we want to add a bridge, we can simply place the cursor somewhere, maybe here, add a new cube, scale this on the x-axis, grab it, scale it some more. This is too much. Something like this, scale it on the y. Now I'm not a very good 3D modeler, but I'm sure there are people who can make a very nice bridge to fit right here. Yeah. So if I hit tab here and Control R to make a cut, maybe here, make 2 cuts. Make sure they're in the center. Scale these on the y-axis to put the edges to the end. Go to face select mode, get those top faces, and I'm going to extrude it now by the z-axis. Now again, on the top right, you can see the height of what you are dragging. Yeah, so you can see the z-axis right here is like our player is 180 or something, so if we drop this to 150, it can still see over. So the bridge is fairly big like this, so maybe scale this down on the y-axis. But okay, so now with this done, you can do whatever you want. Create your model, create your road. So maybe I can show you how to make a road too. really quickly. If we go into the orthographic mode in top, so that's by pressing numpad 5, switches you between ortho and perspective camera. So I'm going to ortho and pressing 7 on the numpad to go top view. Place the cursor here. Now let's create, by hitting Shift A, a new curve. And let's make a Bézier curve. I think it's French. There we go. Now hit Tab to go into edit mode, and let's rotate this one to so that it's straight. Yeah, so a Bézier curve is actually very handy. If we're going to grab this one, you can see it draws a curve. Yeah, so we are going to create a mesh which follows this curve. So you can create a road quite easy using this technique. So I'm gonna grab this, place this somewhere, extrude by pressing E, extrude a new one, and now maybe scale this a little bit, and scale this one too. Make sure you hit the entire thing, and then you hit rotate. Now if you're in orthographic top mode, you can simply press R and it will only rotate on the current axis you're looking at. So if I'm gonna rotate here, and maybe rotate here, rotate here, yeah. Okay, something like this. I'm not creating an entire road here. I'm gonna do it in a new video later on for a different game, but for a racing game. There we go. So now with this path laid out, go out of edit mode, hit Shift A, add a new plane, maybe. And now you can make this plane whatever you want. I mean, you can make it with curbs or whatever, or sidewalks, mirror it, or whatever you want. I'm just gonna keep it very simple by going into edit mode, and then I'm gonna make a cut in the center here. Right click to make it sure it's in the center, and then I'm gonna remove the vertices here, and I'm gonna add a mirror modifier, and I'm gonna mirror it on the Y. I'm sorry, cancel this one. I'm gonna back this out. There we go. Should be on the right axis, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna make this cut here, and select and delete these vertices, and then add a modifier, mirror modifier. And now, why on earth don't I see the mirror? Let's try again. So now let's create a new mesh, and let's create a like a plane or something. Now you can make this plane whatever you want. I'm just gonna make it very simple, making 2 cuts here. Make sure they're in center, and then I'm gonna scale these on the Y-axis, and then I'm just going to raise this, lower these a little bit so they will be in the ground. Yeah, so that's the only thing I'm doing here. Now make sure you hit the no, hit nothing, it's okay. So now we have the plane made, which will be our road. Now let's make it like a little bit distinct by making a material here for it. So now we can see it a little bit. I just went to the material tab, created a new material, and changed the diffuse color of it. Now what we are going to do, we're going to make this plane follow this curve. Now you can see there's a curve here, and the corners aren't very tight, but if you make like cuts here, the more cuts you make, the better, the smoother turn it can make. So I'm going to make 2 cuts here, and then right click to make sure they're in center. Okay, now I'm going to attach these to the we're going to make a new modifier for an array. So you can see now it like follows the amount of count I have here. But I'm going to change this to fit curve and then select the Bezier curve we created. Now it only fits the length of the curve. So now we want to add another modifier, which will be a curve modifier. And then the object we want to follow is the Bezier curve. Now I don't see anything going on. But if I tap out, so I'm now in edit mode, but if I tap out, you can see it follows the entire curve very nicely. Now I just want to raise this a little bit. This is probably already too much. Yeah, so maybe change it here, not the Y, the Z axis, like this. Yeah, so now we have a road added. Let's simply rename these, call this road, let's call this that is perfect bridge over here, like a tank bridge, but it doesn't really matter. It's around. This is for showing you how this works. Also, if you want, the magic button smooth over here. You can see if you're smooth shading, it looks a little bit better. Also, when you're exporting models, make sure you hit smooth if you want to have it smooth shaded. It doesn't matter for this model because we are not going to use the terrain itself actually. Okay, with this done, let's export this to you can export it to FBX, or you can save it as the blend file and then use this one in Unity too. But I'm gonna export it as FBX on the desktop. I'm gonna call this map, whatever. Okay, now going back here, and then I'm gonna drag this into Unity. Now we have the map model. Now if we drag this in right here, first thing you notice, the terrain is exactly centered at 0, 0. And I'm sorry, the model, but the terrain we added was in the lower left. So if you want to change that, always minus the half of it. So minus 250 because it was 500, and on the z-axis also minus 250. Then it will be exactly in the center. Now our map, like I said, was rotated. So we're gonna scale this, I believe, -1. Yeah. So if we scale this -1, it flipped over the model. So now you can see we are in exact shape, more or less. So here is our bridge, which looks a little bit too low. So let's see. Our terrain is a little bit higher. So we're gonna raise this one. Like this. Yeah, so it wasn't entirely correct, so it seems, but more or less correct. So now our bridge is right here. Now if I remove let's see, where's the road? Road is also still a little bit low, but we're going to remove everything except for the road and the bridge, because we don't need the rest of it. So yeah, now you know how you can add 3D models to your Unity terrains quite easily. I'm not going to save this. I'm just going back to the original map, and I'm gonna remove what I just did because I'm not going to use it. Okay. What we are going to do now is make our menu when we start a game. So let's create a new scene, and let's see. Let's remove the skybox here and just change this to color only, so you can see it in the game window. And we're going to change this to like a white color or whatever, maybe gray. Okay. And now let's switch to the game window. Let's create a new UI canvas. And then if you want, you can use a background image or maybe your scene or whatever you want. But I'm just going to make a solid color and maybe add something later on to it and some buttons. Okay, so I'm going to make a new image. And I'm going to make this one dark. And I'm going to I'm going to dock this and to the left of the screen by hitting Shift and Alt and then click on this one, so it docks here to the left. And then I'm going to increase the height so that we are full screen here. Something like this. And then a little bit wider, maybe 300. Maybe I can move a little bit off the center, something like this. So I'm going to make like we can make a logo here and then add buttons here and then do something else here, yeah, or maybe the sub menu of everything we click here. Now let's call this menu background, and then make a new UI button. Let's call this start game, and let's duplicate this one, and let's call this options, and let's move this down like down minus 30, 35, 40, 35. Okay, and then let's call this btn options, btn start game, maybe just start, even better. And then let's make another one. Let's call this btn quit. Quit, and we're gonna lower this even more, maybe to the bottom. Can we stretch this? Yeah, like this. We're gonna stretch it. That's even better. So then our quit button, which we have aligned to the bottom, we can like put it down here. 25. Yeah, so very simple, but fair enough. Now what we are going to do, we are going to make this button option later, but we're going to make this quit button. So let's make this, let's create a new script here. And let's close this down. Oops, create a new folder, menu, and let's call this main menu. So first, let's make a public void start game and a public void quit game. So now with the quit game, we're going to say application quit. So this will quit our game. And here we're going to load our first scene. Now later when we are going to make a network game, this will change, of course. But for now we're gonna make our level here to load. So let's make this like this first: public string levels. No. So let's make a public string level name, and then we're gonna say scene manager. Then you make the using statement of the scene management, and then we're gonna say load scene. Now you can use load scene async as well to make an async operation, so it can load in the background. We will probably do this, won't do this in this video, but we'll see this in a different video, for a different game. And then we're gonna load the level name. Okay. And now for our buttons, we can do this two ways, and I'm going to show you both. First one is the one you see the most. So you simply click your button, and then you have your methods here for the on-click event. So you can click plus, and then you, first let's drag the script of the main menu to the canvas here, and let's call this menu canvas. Okay, so now when you hit your start button, you can drag the menu canvas here, and then you can see the main menu here. It's serialized it, and then you can say start game. So this is the first way you can do it. It's very easy to use, but if you want to pass variables and stuff, it's easier to use code. Now what you can do for that, if we open up the main menu, we're going to say hit public button start game button, maybe even call this serialized field, and then we're going to use the UI using Unity Engine UI. There we go. And now in our start method, so now we can use the start game button by the on click and then add a listener to it, which will be our start game. I think this should work. Yeah. So now we have create our own listener. Now if you want to pass in like something like a value, you can say here a string level name, for example. So now we can say, just like we did previously, start game, and then pass in level name. So maybe we're gonna do it like this. So we're gonna say a level name. Yeah. So now you have more control over the buttons actually. So now we can say here on the let's do it for the quit game button too. Quit game button, on click, add listener, quit game. Doesn't take any methods here or variables here. Okay, and now just assign these. Don't forget to the so start game button, quit game button, and then the level name, third person shooter. Yeah, so this will, the start game button should load the first level. So let's call this main menu, and then if you go to build, I use Control Shift and B. Then make sure you add both the can I drag them both here? Yeah, these scenes in the build, and then make sure the main menu is the first one, so it will load it up for the first. Okay. Now if we hit play, we can hit play, and then we can, we should wait it for it to build, I think. There we go. Now we hit start, and it's still dark. Not sure why. Maybe I need to build it first, something. Third person shooter. Build it. Now my laptop is showing performance issues. There we go. Now if we double click, we will skip this screen also. We're gonna make our own option screen for it, but I'm gonna change this to something else so it's a little bit lower. Windowed play. There we go. Now we have our perfect start screen, and there we go. And everything should be going as planned. And he dies, and I win. Okay, cool. We need an escape button to like quit the game. So we're gonna do that next. Let's go to the third person menu, and let's add this one here. So in our canvas, let's create a new UI image, and let's call this escape menu, and switch the game, and then click the thingy here, and then let's make sure it stretches all around. Then make this like an alpha, blend it a little bit, and then dark, something like this, whatever. Okay, and then let's create a new child here of another image. Let's make this a little bit wider, 500 and 200 high, maybe even darker. And now let's create a new text. Quit to menu. Quit to main. Let's make this white. I'm not changing any colors or anything. Let's make this in center, so it's in the center of this one, and then a little bit here. Maybe keep it in center and create a new, those new buttons. Let's call this BTN, no, duplicated BTN, yes. Let's put this at 25. This is minus 25, no, 250, 150, 100. Yep, and then lower these down. The image could be there, but the text of it, like here. Okay, now this is no. And yes. And again, we're gonna make a script here. Let's call this escape menu. Attach this to the escape menu. And now make sure you apply the prefab again, so the escape menu is there. And in our escape menu, we're gonna do the same thing we did with the main menu. We're gonna get two buttons. You make using statement of the UI, and this is the yes button, no button, void on yes clicked, void on no clicked. void awake, and then we're gonna say this in game object. Let's see, where are we? Yeah, we're not going to use the escape menu script here. I'm sorry, remove it here and add it to the canvas. So escape menu to the canvas, and then we're gonna say we're gonna add this game object here, game object escape menu panel field, so we can get a reference to it and we can enable and disable it. Yeah. So now we are here in the canvas. We are going to hit the no button, the yes button, sorry, the no button, and let it compile. Drag the escape menu here, and then we're gonna say here escape menu panel, set active false, so it will disable it by default when we start the game. And when we click yes, we're gonna say scene manager, make the using statement, load scene, and this was main menu. And on no clicked, we're gonna say here set active false again of the on no. When we don't when we click no, we want simply to hide the thingy. And here's we're gonna make a void update. We're gonna say if game manager instance input controller escape. We don't have it yet, so we're gonna create a new method here. We're gonna say escape menu panel set active true, but if it's already active self, you're gonna return. And then if we are active, we press escape, we need to press a button. Yeah. Okay, so now in the start method, we're gonna say yes button, click, the add listener will be on yes clicked, and for the no button on no clicked. Now the escape button, where is it? Escape. Escape key. Now let's add it the same way we have it here, like so. Okay, let's see what happens if we run this. By default it's gone. If we press escape, it comes into play, but we can still use our mouse. Now we hit no. We don't want to get input from the I mean, we can still do everything, so we want to quit that out when we are pressing the menu. So if with yes, we go back to the start menu. Okay, so that's fairly easy. Now we want to make sure we don't control our player when we are showing the escape menu. So let's see how we can get that done. So here we can say we're gonna make a public variable here. public bool player is paused. Now here we're going to say game manager instance is paused equals to true. And when we hit no, we're going to say false. And here it doesn't really matter because we reload the game manager when we go back into the game again. So by default it's false. When we press escape it's going to true. So now when we are going to the player, let's see. If player is dead or game manager instance is paused, we don't want to do anything at all. So I can walk, press escape, it stops, or I can still press my control, so I need to check that. And I can continue, and yes, and I'm back. Okay, so now what I can hear him shoot when I on yes click still shoots. So apparently we are still shooting, so we want to make sure everywhere that we are getting the is paused state. So in our in our player animation, probably here we're going to return if game manager instance is paused. We're going to return here, and also in our player shoot or game manager instance is paused. Now we want the enemy, of course, to continue when we are pausing. So if we are going here and we press escape, it's my own mistake. Yeah? So now I'm going to get in. There we go. Now there's one more thing I saw. It follows our rotation still. You can see him still following, doing a look at us when he's already dead. So what we want to do in our enemy player, we have a look at here. We want to check here if we aren't dead. Enemy health on dead. Let me see on dead. So if we are, if enemy health is alive, maybe call this here as well. So, or if we are not alive, we want to return. Yeah, let's see what happens. So now he's gone and he stopped following us. Cool. Okay, so this is it. I think we are pretty much near the end for gameplay wise, that is. I still have here this 100 for my health. We never did a video about it. I'm not sure if we want to have this showing. So maybe we are going to hide it. So next will be about a little gameplay mode after this video. And then when we have finished that, we are going to implement networking. Okay, thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.